Hello and welcome to part 4 of Changing Your Perspective. Today we're going to talk about karma. And karma is a B, as they say. But there are some things that you can change about how you feel about karma. Because I doubt it that there are watchers or listeners that viewers that do not understand what karma is. But karma is basically when you do something wrong, you're confronted with it in a similar situation or that causes as much grief as you have caused. And when you've done something right, then you'll be able to pick the fruits of that and see some wonderful things in your life. Well, now there's a thing that I've mentioned before in my videos. It's a karma contract. So that is when you decide to do something that changes the course of a human life, and in a next life you will even this out. So karma isn't necessarily bound to one life. So we can have a karma contract with someone and then run into them in this life and even out some karma of a previous life or even a life before that. Maybe other planets. Well, we're going to have to see about that. One thing that's very important to understand is that karma, you're not bound to karma. This is a very old-fashioned idea because um, if you say that you're bound to karma, then everything you do will inevitably come to you in a certain situation. But there's also a thing called making things right and changing your perspective, which is what these series are all about. And so if you don't get stuck in that situation where you keep that karma, where you said, "Oh, I did something wrong. I'm just going to let it slide. I'm going to pretend like it never happened." Now, that could bite you in the butt at any time. But when you're actively doing something about it, that could help. Well, what about if you've done something to somebody and that person is not available to you anymore? For instance, because he or she died. Well, that's a very valid option. Well, there are things you can do um, to make sure that you follow your karmic path. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with the one you've done wrong. So that's the first thing you can see as a different karma, a karma view. Another thing that's very important is that sometimes, and this is a very hard concept, especially in our 3D reality, because we we encounter, we're presented with a lot of situation where we go, why does this have to happen? And you could say life is cruel. You could also say, well, maybe it's a karmic contract, or it's the choice of a soul to quickly release some of that built up karma. So these are particularly the things that happen to young children. That's what makes it hard. That's what makes it really hard, because it's really hard to see or to even process the fact that young children are being harmed, and they are a lot of times and continuously. there could be something connected to that that may have to do with previous life or previous lives, or even a whole string of wrongdoing. Or maybe you've decided to pick up some family karma or something. So it's hard um to judge this, because when you're looking at the grief of a child, or worse, and a lot of these things happen a lot of the time that are way worse, and you look at it through the karma contract eyes, then it may feel like you're you're pretty 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 much diminishing the problems of these kids, and especially their family. It could be a whole family thing, could be a very experienced soul that decided to maybe even die as a young child, to present the parents with a certain lesson. And again, this is a hard concept, because you have to see it through totally different eyes, and you have to be detached from our 3D perspective without being a cold, heartless beast. So you can still be compassionate and look at these things through different eyes. There's definitely a difference between these things. So when you encounter someone that has this perspective, and you feel like you are being judged because of your 3D perspective, don't, because this person might have some valuable lessons for you, and it may seem hard at the time, but you know, bless me, but you might get some bright ideas. And so this is really hard, because um we're basically 5D or higher beings trying to cope in this 3D reality with all his mishaps and horrible situations. So we're caught between the 3D view and a bigger view. The thing is, both of them are valid. Every perception of every density is valid towards the same situation. So don't dismiss your 3D grief. That is very valid, very valid. But don't dismiss the other side, and you might learn something. What else is there about karma? Well, if you go back to the basics of it, there's a basic rule, and the basic rule is: are you service to self or service to others? When you're service to self, that means service to self in not a good way. So that means you're not willing to share. You're willing to create grief and thus karma because of your own agenda from a 3D level. You can be service to self, but on a higher level. So to elevate yourself, and I don't mean this in a kind of a floopy way. No, just by educating yourself, making sure that that you know what you're talking about. And then when you think you know what you're talking about, it'll show you in a couple of years that you don't. So forgive yourself for that as well. But if you've done the best to your ability to understand your situation in the most broad way possible, then it shouldn't be a problem. Then being of service to yourself is eventually something that will help others. This is something I've discussed in many of my other videos. So please pick that up. And if you are service to self in a negative way, this will set uh, a big pile of karma for you, and not in a good way. And it will eventually mean that um, you do not get to choose whether you go back to Earth to learn these lessons. Then you are obliged to go to this Earth and learn those lessons. So, well, if that's what you want to do, that's okay, because we need these people that create bad karma, because we need those differences. And I've been saying this in many of my other videos as well. We need those differences, because when there is no, um, say, spiritual battle, then there's no growth. If there's no one to try to pull you down, how are you going to go up? No, you're going to stay put. So everybody on this earth plays the role they're supposed to. And who knows, you might be very much service to others in this life and decide, hey, I skipped that whole bit of service to self. Let's come back as a complete a-hole and start acting like it's my planet, and you know, basically living off others. So you never know how these things will go, because in this realm we're shielded from that information, and it's slowly bleeding through. So we're getting to that point where we don't have to guess anymore. We can just search our souls, and we can find where we are, even karmic wise. So that's an interesting turn of events, which I hope you guys are all ready for. I hope that for myself as well, because you know your knowledge just goes as far as you can handle at that point. So, how far you are at this point, it's hard to tell. We always like to say about ourselves that we've learned the lesson. Well, don't be so sure. And that's okay. It's not a big disaster. It's not like when you're confronted with something once and again and you think, oh my God, I thought I put this behind me. Well, evidently you haven't. Then you still have to deal with it. Did you feel it through all the way? That's one of the most important things. How did it make you feel? And did you actually feel that, or did you run away? That's a very important thing in resolving karma. So be ready to feel what you're supposed to feel. Be ready to handle what you're supposed to handle. And it never stops. So also be ready for that. And that's why we need this world. So welcome to this world. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the last part of this series, changing your perspective. I've been getting some questions about the ascension process, and there have been some mishaps about what this is supposed to mean. And I'm not saying that I know all of it, but I know that there are definitely some things that are not it. So that's going to be the next series, The Ascension. I hope you guys are ready for it. I sure am. So see you on the next episode. Bye.